Hey everyone, so this will be the weekly trade recap video for the week of 15 to 19 of February. I hope everyone had a profitable trading week, and then I'll show you guys some of the trades that I've taken this week, as well as some of the trades that I missed and lost, and also some ways that I could have taken or avoided those trades. So hopefully this video recaps help you in terms of taking these entries moving forward. Right, so let's get started. So this was the entry on the 15th of February, Monday. So we waited for the entire London session to just keep trailing up, but then I didn't get a proper entry, so I left my entries as they were, as there wasn't a proper retest in this entire move up. So during the pre-New York session, I watched as for this previous resistance to break and then come back for the retest, and that's when I entered the trade. So it was a bit slow because from Asia to London, GJ actually moved a total of almost 140 pips. So that is past its usual daily range limit. So it was ranging, and then finally it made another explosive move up to the upside again in Asia. So how I managed the trade was over here. When I made my entry long here, I put my stop loss below this lowest wick over on the left so as not to get stopped out. Then I held the trade overnight. So over on this area here, as I was trailing my stop loss up, overnight it got hit night before the London close as I was trailing it 2R back. So this candle actually closed me out at 4R after it reached 6R over here. So the stop loss, I put it below this structure, so below the lower support that was formed, and that's how I got my entry on this with the stop loss. So I was quite lucky at this point here not to have been stopped out on my trade, because this was the changeover of day and the spreads usually widen, and then sometimes there's even a gap down. So I was quite lucky that my trade didn't trigger the BE, and then I managed to ride this Asian move up. So quite a simple entry, just needed a lot of patience with the proper setup and a lot of patience to just hold the trade and to leave a runner to run. So as you can see here, this ran for about 6 hours, so that's quite a decent win for Monday itself. So this was the trade on the 16th of February, Tuesday, during the New York session. So how I found this GJ Long trade idea was, overall, yes, the trend is still bullish. So the entry, I noticed that on this latest 4-hour swing up, price actually formed a support and was rejecting this level over here. Price was actually rejecting the 78.6, and also after that it managed to close above the 61.8 as support on the 4-hour. So over on the 15-minute, I actually waited for price to actually do a break of this previous level of support. So I waited for this break to be done, and I waited for price to come back into this level to hold as support. So my entry was around this area here with my stop loss below this entire structure low here. So I didn't want to squeeze my trades, so I left it at a 20 pip stop loss. And then finally the trade just exploded for 2R. It was a bit slow in the beginning over at this area when it went back down into slight drawdown, but I trusted the 4-hour support that had already been made over here. And then I also noticed that the 4-hour lower wick actually respected the support. So I just left the trade alone, and I trusted my stop loss to hold and the analysis and the higher time frame long bias. So once I reached 2R, I secured half of the trade and I locked my stop loss at break even. Overnight, the trade continued to push higher and it reached 3R for me. But when I woke up this morning, I saw that price actually broke this level of support over at this area, and then I accidentally closed my trade, forgetting that I had already put the trailing stop loss in place. So this one I didn't really follow the trade management rules on this end, so I just secured the profits, the rest of the profits on the runner here. So overall this trade was profitable, ended up in about slightly over 3.21% on this trade. So this was the gold trade that I missed over at this area here. So this was a previous support on the 15-minute. Price actually broke through, came back and retested as the form of a wick. So the entry was actually like this. On the close, stop loss above the zone. Since this is gold, I don't need to have, I can just use structure since it respects structure quite well. And then initially I was aiming for this 1810 line because this was a previous daily support that was held this area here. So previously held as a wick, tested as a wick, and then was previous resistance turn support. So this level was something that I was watching out for. The second entry, so once I hit this area, like as per normal, just close 2R and then leave the rest of the trade to run. This easily ran for 10 before actually coming back to hit me at around 8R, I think. Let's see. So it moved easily. Once I hit 2R over here, I can lock my stop loss at BE, and then after that, when it touches 4R, lock it at 2. This one might have stopped me out over here, but if it didn't, then this trade actually went for 10R. So alternatively, the second entry was actually here. So this area of previous support over here broke, price retested, failed to test near the zone. So this was the proper retest. So on seeing this rejection, this second rejection, and when this bearish candle actually closed, entry could have been like this since there is a strong bearish trend. Enter on the close, stop loss above the zone, and then just write it down again to this clean area on the left. So this would have given you about 3R as well. So today's the 17th of February, Wednesday. So these are the trades that I missed for today. The first one was actually on this level of support. So we see that price actually broke through this 4-hour wick low area of support and then came back to do a retest over here. Initially, I wanted to set a sell stop over here, but this candle missed the entry, so there wasn't any entry for me. And then I saw the potential of price maybe bouncing around this area, so I was also careful around that wick low. So when this candle pushed lower, but the next one closed as a bullish engulfing, there was a potential for longs back to this high. So this would have been the trade like this, with my stop loss tight here, as I wouldn't be anticipating this to come back lower if it wants to go up long. So this would be my target for about 3R. So the next trade short was actually on this candle, after this candle closed. So the sellers actually managed to push for a new high before rejecting and then closing as a bearish engulfing candle. So the entry on this strong bearish confirmation could have been like this. The stop loss just above this wick, and then just write it down. So I can just easily throw my stop loss down to wherever it wants to go. So on Thursday, I took a gold long trade off the previous Asian highs over at this area here. So this trade didn't work out for me, as it hit my stop loss quite fast after that. So my idea was actually, once price actually broke out from this area over here, the correct resistance that I should have come back to test was actually this area and not this previous area. So that was the mistake that I made on this trade. Plus overall, the higher time frame was also bearish, but on this strategy that I'm using, I'm solely trading the 15-minute structure, so I didn't really let that bother me. But for future trades, I will take note of the most recent resistance that got broken, because as we can see here, the trade actually would have gone well if I took it on the previous resistance that broke over here with my stop loss below the structure. So it would have gone might have almost hit my stop loss, but it did actually meet the previous highs over here, which was the intention for this trade anyway. However, my trade I entered over here with my stop loss below this structure, aiming for this previous highs when the higher time frame was bearish. So this trade ended up stopping me out over at this area for a quick stop loss. So I entered this trade with 0.5% risk, and then I lost the entire trade because the trade came down quite fast. So I should have taken I should have paid closer attention to the most recent resistance that broke and not the previous one, because this is more recent price action. This was my trade taken on Wednesday on gold during the New York session. So the idea was a break of this 15-minute previous support and then a retest over at this area to come down lower to this 4-hour previous support level. So very simple textbook trade. This area over here as resistance also had confluence with the 1-hour Fib level, as we can see. It stopped right at the 50% level here. So this was double confluence for me to take the trade short coming down to the 4-hour level, because gold seems to respect this Fib level 50% quite often. So I took most of the trade off at the 4-hour support because on that day itself there was actually this FOMC meetings that would actually affect the gold trade. So I decided to be safer with my trade and just take most of my profits off at the 4-hour mark. So when it reached this area, I took 80% off, and after that we can see that price actually rejected and then came back to retest my price that I had locked at BE. So my runner got stopped out when it hit this area, which was my stop loss at BE. So this trade amounted to about almost 1% of profits when I only risked 0.5%. So I thought it was quite an easy trade on this. So also on Thursday, there was another GJ trade which I missed over on this area here. So this trade actually was quite a big monster trade. The idea came from the fact that this level of support was never broken and was held by the buyers. So during this Asian consolidation, price was actually making higher highs slightly. So when this candle over here actually made a new low and still managed to close bullish, the entry was actually over here like this, with my stop loss below this whole level of consolidation, and I could have taken it up to this highs first. So this high was a clean move up on the 15-minute, and I should have capitalized on this bullish candle close, since overall I knew that this whole area, the buyers were actually sitting inside and holding the price up. Unfortunately, I didn't execute on this trade because I haven't seen these setups enough to actually put money on it. So, and I was a bit iffy when this candle actually closed bearish doji, but on hindsight, looking at it closely, the fact that this candle actually came down and held the support and still managed to flip bullish for a while before finally closing near the bullish candle highs. This was actually an indication that the buyers were still holding this price, so I could have safely entered this trade with my stop loss below this area, which would be my invalidation for the longs. So this idea worked out really, really well, as the trade went for almost 9R based on my stop loss placement. So this was a monster trade that I missed this week, but at least I am able to spot these entries. So hopefully some of you guys managed to catch this when I called it out during the London live stream. Finally on Friday, the same idea popped up again. So it came from the previous day where price actually made this big bullish move. And then I saw that the next level over here, it was actually a break and then a retest to the previous level of resistance. So this 4-hour line is also the 4-hour low as well. Sorry, this yellow line is also a 4-hour low, a resistance that was held over at these areas here that I drew up. What I could see on the 15-minute was At this level of structure, the buyers were holding on to this area here. So I just took note, when this candle came down to break bearish, it didn't even manage to break below this buyer's wick low. So I thought that the buyers were still holding the area. So even though this candle broke the lows of this candle, if we look at the next candle, the buyers actually still held the area. They managed to push low. The sellers managed to push them lower, but the buyers came on strong and still closed bullish above this area. So I took this as my cue that the buyers were sitting strong in this whole area here and holding this level. If price should break below this wick low, it means that the buyers could not hang on to this level and then price will continue lower. So I trusted my analysis throughout all this chop here as I entered around the lower, slower time during the London session. So when this candle finally closed bullish, when it made a lower wick holding near the support, when it flipped bullish, I took my entry long with my stop loss below this invalidation wick low. Honestly, it was quite slow, and I think a few of you were thinking that this could be a break and retest to this previous level of support on the 15-minute to come down lower. But the way I saw it was, as long as the buyers held this whole zone over here, which they have already shown they are through all these candle structures, I should just trust my analysis and my stop loss and leave the trade as it is. So in the end, we can see that price actually moved for about close to 4R to the highs. So I was trading my stop loss up as price was breaking. Another thing that some of you were also asking me is, was I not afraid of this area of resistance on the 15-minute? And I explained that that I wasn't, because over on this area again, price actually showed me that when the buyers came up, they managed to make a new high. If we look closely at all the resistances that were formed, none of the candles actually managed to break this high. So that means that this whole area is actually held by the buyers. For me, the understanding was that once price actually reached this resistance, it would bring on more buyers and then price would then continue to shoot up, which is exactly what it did over here. So I was aiming for the previous monthly high. Once price actually hit 2R somewhere around here, I took 50% of my trade off and I locked my stop loss at break even over here. So when it reached the monthly high, I paid close attention because I knew there was a possibility that price could reject. So it did over here. So what I did was I waited to see if this bullish candle here was able to hold this level of resistance made by the previous buyers. So when this candle actually closed strong bullish, I left the trade alone and I continued to trail my stop loss. But finally, because it's also Friday and I was actually off the charts already, when I saw that the 4-hour candle, which is this one here, the next 4-hour candle, when it made a strong new high but still managed to close bearish, this was my signal that the bears were actually coming into the market. So that's why I cut my trade when this candle closed over here, which is slightly earlier than where it would have hit my stop loss. But looking at this trade now, even though I was slightly distracted, I don't regret closing this since it was a Friday. And this bearish rejection over here to somewhere around the monthly highs and causing the 4-hour to close below it was a clear indication that I should be out of the trade. Overall, that was my week. It was a profitable week for me. I took very few trades, only about 4, as you can see from my trade recap. So overall for this week, as you can see, it was a profitable week. So if I were to do this live for you guys to have a look, so I'm still on my 10K live account challenge just for the fun of it. So if you look at the week of 15 to, if I were to set it to the 22nd, it was a profitable week, made 11% from this week alone, taking only 5 trades, as we can see over here. Sorry, not even 5 trades. There was 3 GJ trades, and then I took the other trades on go on a separate account. So my profits are actually more than this 11% over here, which I'm quite happy with, because I took very few trades and I still managed to end up overall profitable for the week. So less is really more. Be really patient with your trades, guys. and it should work out for you overall in the long run with less stress. Right? So if you have any questions, always feel free to let me know in the comments or drop me a DM. If not, then I'll see you guys on the live stream on Monday.